What's up and welcome to the GizmoSlip. Today we're talking about the Galaxy S20 Ultra 5G. I've got it right here in my hands. The camera bump is enormous. Let's talk about it. I made a whole list of pros and cons, why you should buy it, why you shouldn't. Now before we get started, I just want to remind you that it helps the channel out a ton if you smash the like button. It just helps with the YouTube algorithm for helping people discover this channel. So it means a lot to me if you guys hit that thumbs up. So let me tell you about my first impressions of the S20 Ultra. I walk into Best Buy, I see a bunch of phones on the stands, and immediately this phone stands out to me as the largest phone display that I've ever seen on any smartphone, period. It's enormous, not only in its overall size, but the actual screen dimensions are fantastic. The screen extends almost from one corner to the other corner, providing an incredible screen real estate experience, letting you see your TV shows, your YouTube videos, your web pages with more detail, more like a tablet-like experience than you would with a smaller phone. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of this review, I want to mention that I'm also launching a tech blog where I'll post written reviews of the phones and laptops and different things that I'm reviewing. I've officially moved my domain name from GizmoSlip.co to GizmoSlip.tech. It makes so much more sense. And the great thing is this integrates directly with our sponsor for today, .tech domains. So big thank you and shout out to them. A lot of big tech companies right now are moving to a .tech domain name. You've got CES, you got Viacom, you got other tech YouTubers, Austin Evans. And then because it's only been around since 2015, there is still a lot of domain names still available. So if you have a project, if you have a company and it's tech related, definitely worth checking to see if your domain name is still available. They've been kind enough to offer an 80% off coupon for a 1-year or a 5-year registration. So pretty freaking fantastic, and a big thanks to them for helping sponsor GizmoSlip. Go check it out. Without further ado, let's get back into this review. Here we go. So I've got a couple of the competitors of the S20 Ultra here in front of me here. I've got the ROG Phone 2, which is actually a little bit taller, but it has a slightly smaller display on it. Then we have the Galaxy S20 Ultra here, and you can see the screen to body ratio is fantastic on this phone. Really, really nice. And then you have the iPhone 11 Pro. It has a bigger bezel around the outside, and it also has a large notch. Now, if you compare the size of these devices side by side, you can see that the ROG Phone 2 is actually a little bit larger than the S20 Ultra, but the iPhone 11 Pro is quite a bit smaller. Just know that this phone is a huge phone and is one of the largest you can possibly buy on the market today. So you're only gonna wanna get this phone if you like having that massive display and you don't mind having a big phone. Now, in my time with the S20 Ultra, I have really enjoyed my user experience on this phone over the previous generations of Samsung devices. I had a Note 10, I've had the Galaxy S10, and those phones just got a lot more jittery, a lot more easily, a lot more sooner, just in day-to-day tasks. And in the past, Samsung devices have tended to slow down and get jittery even more the longer I've had them. Because this is a 120 Hertz display on this thing, it's designed to basically keep the animation super smooth, and I've had basically no hiccups, no interruptions, completely smooth and fast user experience. Now, the display on this phone is fantastic. It has Samsung's OLED technology. That's 120 Hertz, as I mentioned before. On top of that, it's gonna have super poppy colors and high contrast for those very deep blacks and a really just awesome viewing experience. Now, that 120 Hertz is gonna take a toll on the battery life, and you have to set it to 120 Hertz manually for that reason. Samsung has it set to default by 60, so just go to the settings, go to the display, snap that thing over to 120 Hertz. Now, you're gonna get about 20 to 25% less battery life while having the 120 Hertz display activated. So if you're wanting maximum battery life and you don't really care about how smooth it is, just leave that off. That said, the battery life on this is fantastic. It's got a 5000 mAh battery, so it can get you through the whole day easily, and maybe even a day and a half. Maybe even 2 full days depending on how heavy of a user, maybe 3 full days if you're an ultralight user. Basically, you're looking at about 9 to 12 hours of screen on time depending on what you do with it. Obviously, if you're playing games at 120 Hertz with high brightness and on 5G, you're gonna kill the battery much, much sooner than that, like 4 and 5 hours tops. But if you're just browsing the web and watching Netflix on Wi-Fi at home, the battery life should last at least like 10 hours of screen on time. It's insane. It's really, really good. Of course, this being Samsung's latest flagship, it has the top of the line specs. We got the Snapdragon 865, 12 to 16 gigs of RAM depending on which model you get, 5G connectivity for future proofing, and disclaimer, My area does not have 5G. I was not able to test that functionality of this device yet, and most of you out there will not have 5G for at least probably another year. But sometime soon, whenever your carrier activates 5G, you'll be able to take advantage of it and have that improved connectivity speed. Let's talk about the camera on this device. Now, the front camera on this bad boy is a 40 megapixel selfie camera with an f-stop of f2.2. Okay, so this is the front camera video, 4K, 60 frames per second. I love the specs on this front camera video. It's really impressive specs at the very least. The 40 megapixels seems to be more of a gimmick, and it probably helped increase the price by a bit. So I kind of wish Samsung had just kept the cheaper 10 megapixel selfie camera from the S20, because this one doesn't seem to focus that well, and some of the pictures kind of come out a little blurry, and that's probably because of these smaller pixel per sensor square inch size. Not a huge fan of the front camera. For the rear camera, we have a 12 megapixel ultra wide camera with a FOV of 120 degrees. Now, the main camera is a 108 megapixel wide angle camera with an FOV of 79 degrees. And this sensor is extra large, one of the largest sensors we've had in any smartphone ever. I think it's fantastic that Samsung is pushing the technology to make it better, but there are some drawbacks to having such a large sensor pixel density, and that is the processing speed of processing said pixels, because there's so many. Now, that is going to affect some things like autofocusing, which this phone definitely struggles with. So we've got the ultra wide camera on the S20 Ultra, and let's go ahead and go to the wide angle camera. And then let's go ahead and go to the telephoto zoom. So this thing is a 5x zoom. That is pretty insane detail. It is searching for focus quite a bit, if you notice that. In a number of the videos that I took, the phone just wouldn't focus on me. Even though I was center frame and talking to the camera, like the facial recognition isn't going on, and that's probably because processing so many pixels at once disables that facial recognition feature that is normally baked into Samsung devices. Now, the third camera on the back is a 48 megapixel telephoto camera with an FOV of 24. This is the 5x zoom camera, and it is an insane telephoto camera for taking photos. Video, not so much. It's just kind of mediocre, kind of grainy, hard to stabilize such an insane telephoto zoom. Now, if you really want to take video with this, with a 5x zoom, you'll probably want to put it on a tripod of some kind so it's more stable. Overall, for taking photos, this is one of the best cameras out there, but for taking video, it's kind of a mixed bag. You've got the ultra wide camera taking excellent video, very good clarity. I really like the ultra wide camera for video on this. The wide angle camera, not so much, because the so many pixels makes the autofocus kind of struggle, which is not something I expected on a top of the line device, but maybe it's something you should expect because of the massive 108 megapixels on the sensor. Now, the camera bump on this bad boy is enormous. It's huge. It makes it sit on the table awkwardly and not very flat. Now, there are a number of other pros to this device that are kind of minor, but maybe you'll take advantage of them. First of all, you have the micro SD card slot for some cheap and easy expandable storage, which I really love. I wish more phones these days would have micro SD card slots. And then you have Bixby, which is the built-in assistant from Samsung. I don't really use voice assistants. If you do, maybe you'll love Bixby, maybe you won't. It depends a lot on the individual user. And then you also have Dex, which allows you to use your Samsung device as a computer of sorts. You know, you can use a keyboard and mouse with a monitor, and you can use it for basic computer functions like emails, browsing the web pages, watching Netflix, and playing some games. Really, really cool feature. There are other companies doing this type of thing for other Android devices, but this is one that's built in to the Samsung platform. Now, another standout feature for the device is the built-in screen fingerprint sensor, so you can just push your finger right up to the edge, activate your fingerprint sensor under the display, and log into your device, which I really like. And then you also have facial recognition, but that's not going to be as secure since it's just looking at a flat image instead of looking at a 3D depth map like it is on the Apple's Face ID. In my experience, the fingerprint sensor worked just fine, but I also had Face ID activated, so unlocking the device was never really a problem for me. What are the downsides of this device? Well, I've mentioned a few. You've got the big camera bump on the back, which I'm just not that big of a fan of. It's enormous, and honestly, the camera for me is not that much better than the Note 10, for example, which I think has better quality video, which I value over photos. So if you're someone who values photo quality over video quality, then this one has that camera upgrade. But if you prefer to record quality video, then I would say take a pass on this particular camera just because it's not that special for video taking. Another minor downside for the S20 Ultra is that you're not going to have all the color options available. I don't know why Samsung did this. On their most expensive phone, you can't get all the cool colors. You only have black and gray. It's minor, especially since most of us will be putting a case on the phone anyway. Now, some downsides for the software is that this does come with some of Samsung's bloatware. You end up with two app stores. You got the Galaxy App Store and then you have the Google Play Store, of course. And so it's going to be a little confusing and harder to navigate than on a pure Android experience. Now, personally, I prefer using Nova Launcher, which is what I use on most Android devices, but I actually tried out the Samsung software and I can say it works just fine, but ultimately it's not really for me. Now, another major con for this device is that many people, especially if they're investing in a device that's this expensive, they plan to keep their phone for many years. On average, between 2.5 to 3 years, maybe even up to 5 years. And the thing is, Samsung has been notorious about only really supporting and giving software updates to their phones in about a 2 or 3 year period. So if you're someone who likes to keep their phone for 4 to 5 years, you're probably not going to be getting software updates in those 4 to 5 years out time period. So just keep that in mind. Probably the most supported phone out there would be Apple, who tends to support their devices up to 5 or 6 years out. That said, Samsung is better than a lot of Android companies out there, which only support their phones for about 1 to 2 years. Now, arguably the biggest con for this device is the price tag. At $13.99, this is an ultra high price tag for your ultra spec phone. And I think the only person who might be willing to pay that much for it is someone who really wants the largest display possible. But I mean, it's such a small difference. We're talking about a 1/2 inch difference between this one and a lot of the other devices out there that are much cheaper, and even less than a 1/2 inch for some of them out there. So overall, if you're a big phone person and you want to pay a little bit less for something that's almost as good and in some ways maybe even better, I'd say take a look at the ROG Phone 2. I really love it. Another phone option to take a look at would be the Red Magic 3S, and Red Magic I think will be coming out with another one sometime soon. Can I recommend this phone? Yes, but only to people who plan on keeping their phone a long time, who want the biggest overall display that they can, and people who focus primarily on taking photos over videos, just because the video is really not that great. But for the rest of us that want the most bang for the buck, I mean, I really like the ROG Phone 2, and I can highly recommend it if you like the overall style of the device. And for everyone else, just the regular S20 is a better alternative, I think, to the S20 Ultra. The video mode will likely be better because it has the lower megapixel sensor on it. The last thing I want to mention is that this thing does have 8K video, but the 8K video takes up so much storage space on the device that I don't think anyone will really be using it. On top of that, the 8K video is not really playable on any devices, because look at my TV. It's only a 4K TV. You're not going to be able to play 8K video on TVs for a long time from now. The 8K video is pretty jittery, it is pretty stuttery, and I just would never use it ever on this phone. But it's way cool that it exists, and it's so cool that it's a thing. Overall, I give this phone like a 7.5 out of 10. It's got its niche. There will be people who will absolutely love this phone, but it's just not going to be for everyone. And that's it for my review of the S20 Ultra. If you enjoyed this video, again, please hit that like button. And if you want to see more review videos, more drop test videos in the future, hit that subscribe button. And I'll see you very soon in the next video. Brandon out. Woo.